Okay, so let's talk about tarot. Now, I want to just start with the premise that for me, tarot is a tool that connects you to your inner wisdom. And I know there's a lot belief systems around guides, and I'm not here to dictate like where your inner wisdom comes from, which is a belief system up to you. I want to connect really to how I use tarot, which is as a confirmation. And in that, I am saying that there are things that you know and you don't know why you know them, or you sense them and you have some inkling about it and like what you should do, but maybe you should do this, but there's something that's telling you something, and it can get confusing. And so, yeah, I think with tarot, it gives confirmation. Every time I do a reading for someone, it's not that I'm coming up with something that they've never thought of. They're like, oh, yeah, I have sensed that, or that is a sense I have. And then they can ask questions, and there is guidance, but it is free will. They're going to make decisions. They're going to connect to their intuition. And I think that that is what makes tarot a really incredible tool for navigating your life, your inner life. I've broken this into and shot it in different times, so my hair is different lengths. Reading tarot intuitively. That's what I'm teaching. That's what I'm into. I want this to empower your intuition. I've broken it down into the backstory of tarot, where I start, because I think that gives you an understanding of the structure of the deck, and that helps you. And then we go into the minor arcana, and then we'll take a little moment to do a 3 to 4 to 5 card spread, and then we'll go into the major arcana. I will break this down in YouTube. You will see all the chapters and everything like that, and you'll be able to jump around and make your own adventure, follow your own intuition about how you want to learn this. Okay. So yeah, tarot confirms feelings you have that you cannot explain. It's also, so part of tarot's history and actuality is that it is a divination tool, and it's therefore associated with ceremonial and ritual magic. And I don't know how you feel about that, but that is just like the structure of it. You will be setting up when you bring out the deck and you shuffle it and you put it on a table. You want the table to be clean. Maybe you light a candle. You are performing divination, which is ritual and ceremonial magic. How ceremonial you want to make it is up to you, and how that affects you or affects the reading. It really doesn't matter. It's your intention that brings the reading into it. And that's part of it, is you're setting the intention. You are grounding yourself, grounding the person you're reading for. And by that, I mean you're just breathing together, feet on the ground, things like that, that become ritualistic, that you'll find you'll do again and again because they seem to add to the reading. Okay, so let's just jump right into the mother of all modern decks is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Rider and Sons published it. They were just a publishing house. They had nothing to do with tarot or ritual magic. And Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith did. Pamela Coleman Smith was the artist, and Waite was more of considered the scholar, but they collaborated on the whole deck. But she is the one who illustrated the deck. And they were part of something known as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And that was, and I'll just read the text, which is, it's a secret society devoted to the study and practice of the occult Hermeticism and metaphysics during the late 19th and early 20th century. So that was from 1888 to 1903. They were interested in hidden knowledge, things like it was a really interesting time of like in the Industrial Revolution, electricity, lighting. The world was changing, and in their world, maybe similar to now with AI and stuff, was changing fast. And they felt that there was a lot of paganism and history and in like other religions that they were now really curious about and wanted to know more about. And So they were just researching and getting together as a group of people and practicing ceremonial magic. Now it was a secret society. They did it on the DL, the down low. They maybe didn't want everyone to know. So Hermeticism explores the nature of the divine, and occult is just knowledge that is hidden. So they were interested in the divine. So they were interested in the spiritual, right? That was key. It wasn't just like, they had a sense of God, but not of like a particular God. And that was different. They weren't wanting to be Christian necessarily, though they were interested in Jewish mysticism and Christian mysticism having a similar origin in Qabalah. So Qabalah runs throughout the deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Qabalah refers to, and again, I'm not a scholar, so I'm just going to kind of, this is the gist, just simplistically, there's something known as the Tree of Life. You will see it, and I'm showing it to you now, I believe, how like the major arcana card, the High Priestess, has the Tree of Life behind her. And it's drawn into this deck. And with the Tree of Life, this refers to the process of spiritual growth and understanding where individuals can move beyond the limitations of the physical world and begin to perceive and experience the divine. So tarot is really a big part of that, because what are you doing? You're moving beyond the physical world of like factual knowledge, like here's the evidence of something, and to like, well, I have a feeling about this, and there's no way for me to access it. There is no evidence that will prove this. And a ritual such as tarot kind of steps in and says like, yes, you're right, or no, you're wrong, but it gives you guidance. Okay, so tarot cards were originally playing cards and have the same structure. And so that's where I feel like, you can kind of, once you see that, you can't unsee it because it's there. Interestingly enough, in 1968, there was a toy fair. And this is kind of like how the Rider-Waite-Smith deck came to America, was that someone named Stuart R. Kaplan, who was the owner of U.S. Game Systems, was at a toy fair, saw tarot cards being sold, the copyright of these cards. So if you bought them, he could then produce them in the US. And Rider and Sons had gone out of business, and that copyright was done, and it was available. And he purchased it, and he brought it back to the US, published them, and sold them in bookstores. So in the late 60s, early 70s, that's where tarot comes to the US. And it's interesting that it is the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, because the purpose of that deck, the very intention of that deck, was that it would be readable and accessible by everyone, that you didn't have to have all this memorization. You could read the deck intuitively. And so it's not popular when it comes out in 1909. It's not particularly important. And then through a toy fair, it comes to the United States, and that's where it takes off. That's where it becomes the deck and starts being used by people. And like, which I don't know, it's just a bit of the story that I really like, because it's so like they set an intention, and they didn't get to see it in their lifetime, but it happened. And I love that. And okay, so I'm going to just briefly show you that this is what a playing card deck would have looked like in the 1400s. And it was all hand drawn, and it was drawn by artisans for rich families. There was, printing was becoming popular or becoming accessible. Things were beginning to be printed, but tarot decks, or playing cards at the time, were something that a rich family would have done and drawn for them. And the face cards would often depict that family. Okay, so in the simplest way, you don't need to know anything about tarot cards. Every tarot deck comes with a guidebook, and you can just literally just open that book, and it will tell you more or less what that card means. If the more money you spend on a tarot deck, the nicer the guidebook. So this is the Wild Unknown tarot deck by Kim Kranz, and she's great. And she has multiple decks. She is an artist and therapist, and a Jungian depth therapist, I believe, and she's really into archetypes, and she has this round deck that's archetypes, and she's really into spirit animals. And her deck is beautiful, and her guidebook is beautiful. And I'm just showing you that the 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 one I'm showing for the tarot deck of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is a really cheap deck and comes with a really cheap, but still usable guidebook. So, and then there's always Google. Learning the Tarot. Now, this is a book that I read and still have and still reference, and it's by Joan Bunning, and it's still in print, I believe, and you can buy it at a bookstore. I bought it at the Alexander II bookstore in Pasadena, California, and they're a great resource for like metaphysical things. So yeah, you can also go really deep because why not? If you're interested, you could go into I have this book. I look at it from time to time. It was written mostly in the 1800s and has actually Arthur Waite's original writing about tarot and what he's thinking and what his research is showing. And by research, I mean they're looking into secret knowledge. And so, take it all with a grain of salt. Like it's like they may not understand Egypt. So they're not anthropologists. Okay. So this is the Motherpeace tarot deck, and it was written by Karen Vogel and Vicki Noble, who were feminists in the 70s, and they were looking at tarot and saying like, well, why don't we see the goddess? Why are women being gendered in such a specific way? And so they made their own deck, and I'm thankful because I grew up in an America like post yoga America, so I think I know what chakras are, and that's part of my language. So the fact that they're working with a language that I understand really helped me understand Pamela Coleman Smith's drawings better. So I'm giving you an example right now of the Four of Swords. So again, all tarot decks reference her deck in some form. And her deck was, referencing tarot, what a tarot deck would be. But she was interested in illustrating every single card. So, she is always telling a story, but I don't always understand her stories because I don't come from a Christian background. I don't come from a Jewish background. I don't come from that type of I'm looking at the Four of Swords and it looks like someone's dead to me, but they're in a tomb, and she's using it to reference like what I would understand a deep meditation to be, where you're taking a break with your thoughts and you're going deep inside and you're trying to learn something. So the Motherpeace deck, it uses the Four Swords to create a sacred area where she's sitting in a pose that I understand to be meditation, and her chakras, the colors behind her, are aligning Kundalini, kind of, something I haven't studied, but I've experienced in a Kundalini class, right? So again, I come from the post-yoga America, so I think this is my culture, right? As a white woman, this is me. In appropriation, right? But I've done it, I've understood, so it's in my body somewhere. I think I know it. So this image, I'm like, oh, she's in deep meditation. She's aligning her chakras. She's coming into balance. I get it. So you can use any deck you want from tarot to read tarot. You don't have to do the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. That is, again, the original, the modern deck. I'm going to teach it at this moment. I'm going to use it, but I really encourage you to go out there and find a deck by like Kim Kranz or by, Vicki Noble, the Motherpeace deck. Like, find the decks that work for you. It can be cats. It can be anything. And it really is. There are, I don't know, hundreds of decks, thousands of decks. I don't choose one that speaks to you, and know that it's still based on the principles that I'm teaching you. The cards will have shifted slightly meanings, like interpretatively, but they are still based on the same deck. I'm going to refer to this again, which is that all tarot decks are in relationship to all other tarot decks. And I find this fascinating. I'm going to show you the Hanged Man from 1400, the 1400s. And then I'm going to show you Pamela Coleman Smith, 1909, Hanged Man. Then 1978, the Hanged One. It's a feminist deck. It's a woman hanging, and she's hanging by a serpent from a tree. Serpent is knowledge. Then Kim Cran's deck. It's a bat because she's interested in the animals. So she uses them as a metaphor. Again, it's all the same card. And it's been the same card for like 700 years. And I love that. It's just a deep well that you're pulling from when you're doing tarot. It's not, it's old, and it has depth, and I think magic, which is not to knock Oracle cards. I just want to preface that. I love Oracle cards as too, and you might never touch a tarot deck, and you may do your divination from an Oracle deck. I'm going to give this as an example. This is the Oracle of Numbers. It's based in numerology. It's by the artist James R. Eads. He has tarot decks. He has rune decks. He has all this stuff. Beautiful, and they're all beautiful, I think. And Prismavisions.com is where you can find him, and he's great, wonderful. And if you are already into numerology and that's something that already speaks to you, this might be the deck for you. And you can stop watching this video now. No, you could, if you have interest in tarot. I don't know how it relates all the time to Oracle decks, but they're in the same world, right? Okay, so historical evidence suggests that playing cards came to Europe through trade via the Silk Road, so from the East. The people of Europe began implementing and playing cards into their divination practices. Now, even though the Christians had taken over, or the religion had taken over, the pagan traditions continued and were often used. They would use anything like bones, tea leaves, tree limbs, rocks, everything. So playing cards just became part of that. And the divination practices changed playing cards into tarot cards, because you have the regular deck, which we've talked about with the 4 suits and what's similar to playing cards. But then the major arcana exist in the tarot world. And they are 22 cards, so they count up to 21, because the first card, the Fool, is a 0. So, but that's how playing cards transform into the tarot deck. And Cartomancy is the practice of divining fortune by the means of playing card decks. And it's probably, I imagine, still practiced to this day. And to a certain degree, if you know tarot, you could read a playing card deck if you had it memorized. But of course, you don't have to memorize. You will, in a sense, you will memorize, but you will also be reading intuitively and looking at the illustrations for help. So the suits of the minor arcana match playing cards, though they're translated. So you have hearts become cups, diamonds become pentacles, clubs become wands, and spades become swords. And so each of these suits is associated with something. So I have cards up here right now that are showing you the ace, which is the first card. And so cups are emotions represented by water. Pentacles are your well-being. They're earth. They are represented by coin, but they're part of earth. And swords they symbolize your thoughts, and they're associated with air. And wands are your personal empowerment, your gifts, what you're here to do. And they are your fire. They're associated with fire. And of course, you can translate that easily into astrology. And many people do a combination of astrology and tarot. And there are tarot decks based on astrology. And then there's just the astrology that's sort of in tarot. The face cards of the minor arcana, I'll just do this quickly. There's the Jack, Queen, King of a playing card deck that gets translated into the Page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King. So it becomes 3 cards become 4. And early major arcana cards were an excuse to depict the family that was, they were more than that, but they were often used as a way to depict the family. That was commissioning you to make them. So you were using them as to be represented. They were the faces. And maybe that's why there are two. That's why the Jack became two, so that you had more cards to pick the family through. But then they also started working in myths that already existed. So then there started to become a language for these major arcana cards, not just that they depicted the family, but they also had very particular cards that were going to become standard. So you had the Hangman, I've mentioned and shown. Then you have Temperance. You have the World card, though I'm here depicting it as maybe it might be the Sun card. I'm not sure. It could be, I don't know. I don't know what that card is. So, but then you have the Three of Cups. You can see Pamela Coleman Smith takes the time to tell the story of the Three of Cups so that you don't have to memorize it. You have the Ace of Cups, Swords, and then you have the Knight of Pentacles. And so I'm kind of showing you her version and like a very old version from the 1400s, but you can see that these cards are becoming very standard. This is engraved and block printed cards. These would be what the everyday people were using as playing cards, but then also as tarot cards, because these two cards I'm depicting, one is the Chariot. That is a major arcana card. The other is the Ace of Cups, which would fit inside a playing card, right? But yeah, this is her, Pamela Coleman Smith, and Arthur Waite, him as well. This is their major arcana. This is her representation of the major arcana cards that she sees as being standard. These are the standard. By the time she's looking at them, we already have about 600 years of history behind them, and they already have a very, of course, there's going to be artists doing different things, but these are the ones at least she has chosen. And these come from, and where her choices may have come from is from this one deck, the Sola Busca deck. There were a lot of these decks were Italian, by the way. Don't know why. That they really liked it. They were very wealthy, I think. There were a lot of like wealthy families there. So this deck was on display in London in 1908. So she would have seen it. I don't know if this is known for sure, but it's believed that she went there and sketched from it and was, inspired by the fact that they were also depicting every single card. So the Three of Swords tells a story, the Ten of Cups tells a story. For example, very particularly, this is the Three of Swords. This is her Three of Swords. Now, I've also seen this card shown as being the Three of Swords. I'm not a scholar. I'm not sure, but either way, she's very influenced. I want to just briefly, as this section comes to an end, I want to go just really hard, like pointed on this. Intuition. I will be encouraging you to trust your gut. So when you're looking at these images, I want you to let thoughts come up, and whatever you think, I want you to say that. Whatever you hear, see, feel, I want you to go there. I don't want you to second guess yourself. I want you to trust what you're feeling and just say it. And the more you do that, and the more the person you're reading for says like, oh yeah, no, that's exactly right, the more you will then trust your intuition for even yourself, for your life. It will strengthen that muscle. And that is what I want to use tarot for. It is going beyond the veil. It is connecting to something that is beyond you in some way. But at the core of it, that beyond you is within you. I often refer to in my guided meditation and hypnotherapy and Reiki and everything else that I do, the infinite within you. The universe, God, everything is within you. That is your access point. It's you. Trust it. And, if you need confirmation, go to tarot, go to divination. It will confirm what you already know in your heart of hearts. So we'll be moving on to the minor arcana now, and feel free to take a break. I'm taking a break, and then I'll be right back.